My dear friends, we live in an age where comfort is worshipped, and suffering is feared like a thief in the night. But I tell you, and I tell you not with the voice of mere opinion, but with the echo of centuries of truth, your pain is not the end of your story. It is a piece of your puzzle. Let us then walk together, you and I, through 5 luminous truths that reveal the divine design behind your trials. Ah, how often we flee from pain as though it were some terrible intruder, a thief come to rob us of joy. And yet, in the paradox of divine love, pain is sometimes the very messenger of grace, the unexpected guest who carries in his hand the invitation to transformation. The human heart, my dear friends, is much like stained glass. It does not shine in sunlight, but only when pierced by light from within. So too our wounds, those places of deepest ache, those private crucifixions, are where God's grace most brightly enters. There is something profoundly sacred in a wounded soul that has not turned bitter. For pain that is offered to God becomes holy, it becomes redemptive. We look at our suffering and we ask, "Why, Lord?" But heaven answers not always with explanations, but with presence. And presence is more powerful than reason. The very Christ who cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" from the cross did not receive an answer in that moment, but he received resurrection 3 days later. We must not despise our wounds, for they are not marks of failure, but of formation. A body that bears scars is a body that has lived, and a soul that bears wounds is a soul that has loved. If you have suffered betrayal, do not be ashamed. You have loved where others feared to. If you have wept in silence, do not feel small. You have carried a depth of compassion the world cannot measure. It is in these secret, hidden places, where no applause echoes, where no crowd gathers, that the divine hand works its finest art. The sculptor does not carve marble with a feather, but with a chisel. Each blow that strikes you is not to shatter you, but to shape you. We often think we are being broken, but in truth we are being made beautiful. You see, my friends, when we are wounded, we are opened, and in that opening, heaven finds an entrance. Love slips in through cracks. Humility rushes in where pride once stood. Empathy is born in the ashes of our anguish. The soul becomes translucent when it is no longer trying to be invincible. Oh, what power lies in a wounded heart that remains soft! What might is there in one who can say, "Yes, I am hurt, but I am still here. Yes, I have scars, but I still believe." For that soul has touched the hem of eternity. That soul has stood in Gethsemane and whispered, "Not my will, but thine." So do not cover your wound in shame. Do not rush to close it too quickly. Let the light come in. Let the healing take its time. For someday, someone else will sit beside you in their own valley of tears, and it will be your story, your very wound. That becomes a beacon to guide them home. And in that moment, you will understand. This pain was never meaningless. It was never wasted. It was not the end of you. It was the making of you. We must not forget that at the heart of our faith, at the very center of the Christian mystery, stands a cross, not a throne, not a crown, not a blazing chariot of victory, but a crude, splintered cross. To the eyes of the world, it appears as the sign of defeat, humiliation, and agony. And yet, paradoxically, it is this very cross that unlocks the gates of glory. It is not the period at the end of the sentence, but rather the key that opens the door to a chapter yet unwritten. What seemed to be the end of Christ's earthly journey was in truth the very mechanism through which the resurrection would explode into history. So often we look at our own suffering, our own losses, our own crosses, and we cry out, "Why, Lord? Why have you left me in this desolation?" We assume the cross means abandonment, but that is a terrible misunderstanding. The cross does not signify that God has forsaken us. It signifies that he is closer than ever, laboring within our pain, shaping eternal glory through temporal grief. Look at Calvary. There stood the Blessed Mother, her heart pierced as surely as her son's body. There stood the thief, hanging beside Christ, guilty yet graced in his final breath. There stood the Roman soldier, blind to the mystery before him. To each, the cross meant something different, and so it is with us. But regardless of how we perceive it, the cross remains what it has always been, the bridge between death and life, between despair and hope. It is a strange truth, but a liberating one. Your cross is not the end of you. It is not the punishment of a cruel God, but the invitation of a loving one. It is the chisel in the hand of the divine sculptor. It is the classroom of the soul. The suffering you endure today may very well become the sacred doorway through which you walk into your purpose. We must not run from the cross. We must not cast it away. Christ did not merely accept his cross. He embraced it. He carried it with full knowledge of the agony it would bring, because he also saw the joy that would follow. And if we are to follow him, we too must carry ours. Not begrudgingly, not with clenched fists, but with open hearts. For when we carry the cross in union with Christ, it becomes lighter and even beautiful. What the world sees as tragic, heaven sees as triumphant. On Good Friday, the earth trembled and the sky darkened, but it was not the end. It was only the beginning. The stone would be rolled away. The tomb would be empty. The wounds would shine with glory. Death would lose its sting. So too with your life. That betrayal you suffered, that illness you endure, that grief that weighs so heavily. It is not your grave. It is not the period at the end of your sentence. It is the pause before resurrection. It is the key, not the conclusion. One day, perhaps not today and perhaps not tomorrow, but one day you will see that the very thing that seemed to break you was the thing that finally revealed you to yourself and to the world. Therefore, do not resent the cross. Do not curse the weight you bear. For hidden in its wood is the wisdom of God. Hidden in its shadow is the seed of glory. Embrace it, lift it, and walk on. Not in despair, but in hope. Not as a victim, but as a pilgrim journeying toward the resurrection that always follows the crucifixion. And when that day comes, and it will, you shall look back and see that the cross was never the end. It was the key that opened everything. It is one of the deepest consolations of the spiritual life to know that God does not require a straight line to create a perfect picture. He does not limit himself to symmetry or simplicity. No, he is the divine artist who draws straight with crooked lines, who takes the jagged paths, the broken detours, and the shattered pieces of our stories, and weaves them into a tapestry of grace so astonishing that only heaven will reveal its full beauty. We look at our lives and often feel confusion. This wasn't supposed to happen. We say, that door should not have closed. That person shouldn't have left. That loss wasn't part of the plan. But what plan, my dear friend? The one we drew for ourselves. Yes, we love our neat outlines, our visions of success, our maps with smooth roads and no surprises. But God does not consult our sketches. He designs from eternity. Take a moment and think of Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned, forgotten. Surely if anyone had a right to question God's providence, it was he. Yet the very path that seemed so broken became the bridge to Pharaoh's palace. The betrayal became the blessing. The prison cell became the preparation for leadership. And what does Joseph say in the end, standing before the very men who wronged him? You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Ah, there it is, that divine reversal, that holy irony. The crooked line drawn by men's sin became the straight path to salvation for an entire nation. And so it often is with us. The detour you are on now may very well be the most direct route to your destiny, though it does not feel like it. The job you lost, the relationship that ended, the dream that collapsed, perhaps none of them were obstacles at all, but instruments in the hands of a God who sees further than you ever will. Our sight is so limited. We see the moment, God sees the whole mosaic. We see the scar, He sees the healing that will come through it. We see the loss, He sees the freedom it will one day bring. We see only crooked lines, but He is already drawing a masterpiece. Sometimes we think God's will must always feel peaceful and clear, but it is not always so. Look at Moses, stammering and fearful, yet chosen to lead a people to freedom. Look at Ruth, a foreign widow gathering scraps, yet destined to become the ancestor of Christ. Look at Peter, a fisherman who denied his Lord, and yet became the rock upon which the church was built. None of these lives followed a predictable path. All were crooked lines, yet God drew something eternal with them. Do not despise the chapters in your story that make no sense right now. Do not rip out the pages that are stained with tears, for those very lines, though twisted, confusing, and dark, are being drawn by a hand that never slips. Your story is not a mistake. It is a masterpiece in progress, and even now the author is still writing. There may come a day when you will look back, and like a man climbing a great mountain, you will see how each winding turn, each confusing valley, each rocky incline led you higher, not lower. You will weep not because of the pain, but because of the perfection. You will marvel not at your plan, but at God's. So hold on. Trust the artist. Trust that even in the crookedness, there is order. Even in what feels random, there is purpose. And even in what looks like ruin, there is resurrection waiting to rise. For God always draws straight, even with the lines that look crooked to us. There is a quiet wisdom that suffering imparts, one that cannot be learned in the bright halls of comfort or the soft cushions of ease. It is a wisdom that is etched into the soul, not written in ink, but carved in tears. Pain is a teacher, though we do not often choose his classroom, and yet it is the very place where the deepest truths of life, of love, of God, are taught, not by lecture, but by experience. We are conditioned by the world to chase comfort, to avoid pain at all costs, to measure success by how little we suffer. But the saints, the prophets, the martyrs, the Savior himself, all of them speak another language, one written in the dialect of the cross. They show us that comfort can lull the soul to sleep, but pain has the power to wake it up. Comfort can make us forget God. Pain drives us to our knees, where we rediscover Him. In times of comfort, we are often tempted to believe we are self-sufficient. We begin to think we are the authors of our success, the architects of our destiny. But when suffering comes, when loss sweeps through like a storm, when the ground shakes beneath our feet, we are brought face to face with the truth of our fragility. And it is in that moment, when we realize we are not enough on our own, that the door of the heart opens to grace. Pain strips away illusions. It peels back the layers of pride and distraction and reveals what is eternal. It shows us what truly matters. In pain, we learn compassion, for we come to understand what it feels like to bleed. In pain, we learn humility, for we realize how limited we are. In pain, we learn surrender, for we must admit we are not in control. Have you ever noticed that the kindest souls, the most understanding hearts, are often those who have suffered much? There is a depth in them that cannot be faked. They have walked through fire and emerged not hardened, but softened. Pain has taught them to see others not with the eyes of judgment, but with the eyes of mercy. Comfort may keep the surface of our lives undisturbed, but it does not cultivate depth. It does not challenge us to grow. It does not confront us with our need for God. Only pain has the power to unearth the hidden places of the heart, to expose what lies beneath, and to offer it up for transformation. And let us not forget, even Christ himself, though perfect and without sin, was made perfect through suffering. As the scriptures say, why? Not because he needed to be purified, but because through suffering he entered fully into our condition. He walked into the heart of human anguish and sanctified it. He did not bypass pain, he redeemed it. So when we suffer, we do not suffer alone. We walk a path once walked by God himself, and when we offer our suffering to him, not resentfully, but as a gift, as a prayer, he does something extraordinary with it. He makes it fruitful. He allows it to change us, to mature us, to make us holy. You may not feel it now. You may not see what good can come of your present trial. But I assure you, there is a lesson being taught that comfort could never offer. One day, perhaps much later, you will look back and understand that the breaking was actually the beginning, that the very thing you asked God to take away was the very thing he used to remake you. Let the pain do its work. Do not rush it. Do not silence it. Let it teach you. Let it deepen you. For in its harsh syllables are sacred truths, and though the lessons are costly, they are eternal. For pain, when embraced in faith, does not diminish you. It refines you. It teaches you what comfort never could, how to be fully human and how to be fully his. There is a strange and beautiful truth that often eludes us in the midst of our suffering, that the very pain you now carry, the one you wish would disappear, the one that has brought you to your knees in silence and solitude, will one day become your greatest gift. Not because pain is good in itself, but because pain, when surrendered to the hands of God, is transformed. It is not wasted. It is not meaningless. It is repurposed, and it becomes, in time, a balm for someone else's wounds. We tend to think that our greatest value lies in our strength, our talents, our achievements, the parts of our lives that look clean and polished. But often, the deepest connection we form with others is not in our victories, but in our vulnerability. Not in the chapters where everything made sense, but in the pages where everything fell apart. It is there, in the dark places, that we begin to understand not only ourselves, but the human condition. And it is there that we begin to love in a way that is real, raw, and redemptive. When Christ rose from the dead, he did not erase his scars. Think of that for a moment. The risen Lord, glorious, victorious over death itself, still bore the marks of the nails in his hands and feet. He showed them to Thomas. He kept them not as symbols of defeat, but as signs of love. His wounds became witnesses, and so will yours. There will come a day when someone sits across from you, broken, confused, and aching with a pain you recognize all too well. And in that moment, you will not need a clever answer. You will not need a theological explanation. What you will offer them instead is your presence, your story, your scar, and when you say, "I've been there," and mean it, something sacred will happen. They will feel seen, they will feel less alone, and they will begin to believe that healing is possible, because they see it in you. This is the mysterious economy of the kingdom. What you thought disqualified you, God uses as your ministry. The place you were wounded becomes the place from which you bless. The affliction that almost crushed you becomes the very experience that makes your love authentic. You become not only a survivor, but a servant. Not only a healed soul, but a healer in the name of Christ. It is important, though, to understand that this transformation does not happen immediately. Wounds need time. Some healing takes months, some years. And there is no shame in that. You do not need to rush your restoration for the sake of usefulness, but trust this, the day will come when you look back and say, "I see now. That season of darkness wasn't just about me. It was also about the one I would one day help to walk through there." And so, I urge you, be patient with your pain, don't bury it. Don't pretend it never happened. Let it be touched by grace. Let it be sanctified, not sanitized. Let it be offered back to God, who never wastes anything surrendered to Him. Your pain, in His hands, becomes a part of your mission. You may not feel strong right now, but remember this: the most powerful sermons are not delivered from pulpits, but whispered through broken voices that have learned how to sing again. And your voice, trembling though it may be, will be the song someone else needs to hear. So hold on, dear heart. One day, what crushed you will crown you. One day, what brought you to tears will bring someone else to hope. One day, what hurt you will heal another. Your pain is not just a wound. It is a gift, one you will give away with love, with truth, and with the power of a soul that has been through fire and come out filled with light. Let me leave you with this final thought. Your life is not a mistake. It is a mosaic, and every painful shard has a place in the eternal design. Hold your sorrow not as a curse, but as a sacred clue. For one day, when you see the completed puzzle from heaven's vantage point, you shall say with tears of joy, "It was beautiful. Every painful piece necessary, redemptive, divine. God love you."